What is up, everybody? Here we are on a Victory Monday. It's not maybe quite, the birds aren't singing quite as joyously and loud as they were last Victory Monday, but it's a Victory Monday. How the heck are you doing, Mike?
Hey, I am doing good, man. A win is a win. I've been talking about this win verbatim on my channel here, and yeah, it might have looked a little a little worrisome when it comes down to the offense, but I think we just saw kind of an old-fashioned division game, gritty defensive type of game, and I'm not mad at it, man. 10-17, we still got the W.
You know, I'm glad to see we can win these kinds of games too, right?
Yeah.
You'd love to blow out every team, but to show that the team can win these kinds of games is great. So 100% agree with that. Let me real quick just give a shout out to the folks that are in the chat. We got Lennon Wolf, who's always reliable in here. Classy Nasty, thanks for being here. 5-0. Silver Wolf AZ, Calvin. We're going to talk about those injuries. That's one of the hard pills to swallow. But thank y'all for being here. So we're gonna talk about a couple different things, but let's go ahead and jump right into it with studs and duds. Mike, who is your first stud from this game?
So I would have to go ahead and go with my guy DeAndre Hopkins for my first stud, and the biggest reason as to why is because I just felt like the last touchdown kind of just changed the whole game just in general. Now, let me just first start by saying the freaking San Francisco 49ers defense copied Baby Yoda, celebration. And I think from there, I think it was all kind of, heck to be raised at that point. So DeAndre Hopkins is game changer, man. Not only that touchdown, but there was another throw that was done that was really, really key. It might have been short thrown by Kyler Murray, but obviously DeAndre Hopkins doing his thing, he ended up catching it. So DeAndre Hopkins, man, my first stud of this week.
Yeah, that catch reminded me a little bit of the underthrown ball that Kyler threw that AJ Green did in the Jacksonville game. But yeah, listen, big players make big plays when it counts, and this was when it counted. Yeah. That is a great pick. Real quick, want to say hey to some of the folks who are filing in. Mark Jackson, and I know he's a really great member of both of our communities, both of our channels. So it's Tangy's here. Big Play Slay, an Eagles fan. Thanks for being here, man. And I think I already, Calvin, yes, I mentioned you earlier. Thank you all for being here. All right, so my first set, I'm going to stay on the offensive side of the ball with you, and it's one of his running mates, Rondale Moore. He had those first two games that were really, really awesome. He was a little bit quiet for a while, and this offense is kind of spreading the ball out. So they're going to have their good and bad days. But, boy, so that catch, everyone knows which catch I'm talking about. He is a star in the making, and obviously had a couple other really good plays. Dude is a stud. That catch was – like coming in, I think we were talking about this on my live stream last night. Coming in, he's like this. People typecast him as this gadget player, and you don't think of those guys as having good hands and good route running and stuff. Yeah. But like the dude's a receiver and and a weapon in the backfield, and man, he really showed it on that play.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I think when it comes down to, I think he had like 3 carries, 38 yards, and then 5 receptions, 59 yards. And you're right, man. Whenever he gets the ball in his hand, he's trying to make some plays, and that's something that I'm excited that we have. Honestly, once he kind of gets going, it's going to be amazing. Obviously he's getting going already, but once he kind of gets more games under his belt, it's going to be awesome to see.
Yeah. Want to say quick hey to Simon. Thanks for being here. Diego, thanks for being here. So, Mike, who's your second stud for this game?
So my second stud, I'm going to have to go to the defensive side of the ball, and that's going to be Zach Allen. I think Zach Allen had a huge game, and we saw his new dance too. So I'm actually really happy that he kind of gave us that little, whatever you call it, shuffle. I don't know what it is, but I thought it was very entertaining to see. And I actually kind of have a question to ask. Did this guy not have 2 sacks? I could have sworn he had 2 sacks, and everywhere on the stat sheet is saying he's got 1 sack.
See, that's what I'm seeing too, because I remember in the game, there's his second sack. So I guess I need to look at this. I don't know if either maybe one of them he tackled him right at the line of scrimmage, and maybe I don't know. I'm just wondering, but I know he's got a couple tackles for losses in the box score. But yeah, dude, I was wondering the same thing because I thought that, and then I'm seeing everywhere 1 sack. So. I'm going to rewatch the game at some point. So when I get an answer, maybe I'll get that back to you. But yeah, that was weird. But yeah, it was nice to see him have a good game because, to be honest, he hasn't had a great year thus far. And it's nice to see his number called and see him get some recognition for one game. So yeah, that was huge. I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball and go with the guy who had the big boy football play of the game, and that's Isaiah Simmons. Man, so I mean, he got a little banged up from it, came back, so we're glad to see he's back. That was a huge play. I mean, obviously stopping them on the goal line, the outcome might have been very different. In a close game like this, there's like a dozen plays that really you could say were the deciding play, and that was one of them. But you think of Simmons as this linebacker who's more of a coverage linebacker because of his safety skills, and and you think of him as this fast, rangy guy, but he's making some big boy football plays, and that's maybe something I didn't expect from him, because of kind of his profile is more the pass coverage linebacker. But he had a huge play, and I know we were talking about this before. I think we probably both agree that the whole freaking defense were a bunch of studs, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%, man. I think this is the game that defense had to carry our offense, honestly. We're so used to and so spoiled, getting 30 points per game. We were super excited about it, and this was one of them that we needed to kind of be bailed out, and I'm so glad that they came out clutch. Now, we played Trey Lance. I still think Trey Lance did an amazing job. Maybe not throwing the ball, but more rushing the ball more than anything. And it kind of frustrated me. And we're going to talk a little bit about that a little later on. But yeah, man. Yeah. Great job. Yeah. Defense all around.
Yeah. It's and I've heard someone's, I forget who it was, but some national commentator described the Cardinals in terms of like what they're starting to look like, their upside, as the Chiefs with a good defense. Right?
Yeah.
And that's scary in the best way possible if you're a Cardinals fan, right? So
yeah.
It's great to see this defense getting, really, if you take out that Minnesota game, this defense has been good all year.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, Jacksonville, you could say we gave up a little more than we should in terms of yards to a really bad offense. But even when you take out that fluke, field goal miss for a touchdown, that we only gave up 13 points. Our defense gave up 13 points, right? Our special teams gave up that 6. So, yeah, it's really nice to see. So we talked about this before. We actually do each have a dud this week, and maybe that's what happens when your team only scores 17 points. So Mike, who was your dud this week?
So I was going to touch on about it, and I kind of had to stop myself. So basically, my dud was the run defense. We are still seeing the same kind of things where run games are kind of running all over us, and it's kind of frustrating to see. But every time I do previews, I always kind of highlight like, hey, we need to tighten it up. We got to definitely do this, and that's a key to success. I get like easier said than done, and I get that the San Francisco 49ers team, usually they have a very good run game out the outside, but I feel like everything was working for them when they were running the ball. Trey Lance was getting sticky. We had Elijah Mitchell, I believe his name was. Trey Sermon tried to get involved, but we were really getting gashed from Trey Lance. He had like 16 carries, 89 yards from a quarterback. So that's kind of frustrating. And that's not even to mention Deebo Samuel with 1 carry, 13 yards, and that was their touchdown by a rushing attempt. So that was my big dud.
Yeah, and the running backs themselves only had about 50 yards, but the team overall had over 100. They they got one of the receivers involved. Obviously Trey Lance ran it a lot. So they still ran it well. Now in the first quarter, it felt like our run defense was doing pretty good, but they were still effective at points. So and every team's going to have some weakness or flaw, and I think if you got to pick one, I'll live with the run defense because if our passing offense can get leads like we or put up points, teams aren't going to be able to stick with the run. so they're going to have to ban it. And we've seen that in a couple games. But yeah, the run defense continues to be an issue. Want to real quick say hey to some of the folks that have come in. Colton, Pemberton jumped in here. Ian Keller, thank you for being here. And if you got questions, we'll do a Q&A in just a little bit. So hang tight with your questions and we'll get to those. My dud was the pass protection from the offensive line. And I know some of that, Rodney Hudson getting banged up hurt that, but this offense, only put up 17 points and it just stalled out a bunch of times, made some big plays, that got us the win. But I think that one of the big problems for the offense was between the false start penalties and then Kyler getting sacked and the pressure put on Kyler. There were a lot of 3rd and long situations that the Cardinals found themselves in that they just couldn't recover from. And Kyler, despite the fact that he sometimes makes huge Superman plays, on those kinds of situations, just couldn't make them as consistently. Kudos to Kyler, even though he didn't have a typical game for himself, was really efficient. I looked at the stats today. He didn't have any turnover-worthy throws, according to the way PFF grades them. But yeah, I think the pass protection is probably one of the reasons we scored as few points as we did, because of those situations we found ourselves in.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man. When it comes down to it, Rodney Hudson was a huge situation that happened. I think, obviously I think a lot of us are happy as Cardinal fans being 5-0, but there's some kind of like a doom and gloom going on right now because of the huge injuries that we had. And we're going to talk about it here in a little bit.
We're going to talk about that at 2 different levels. In fact, I'm going to ask you, Mike, if you have, if you could share with us what you've heard in terms of updates to the injury situations.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of like what we've heard from Cliff Kingsbury today, as per the media, they're basically saying that Cliff Kingsbury came out into the podium and then obviously they asked, the status of Max Williams as well as Rodney Hudson. And he's saying that there's no really status updates in terms of, the official Cardinal update here. But I think we all kind of know, the whole Max Williams injury. It looked bad. It looked really, really bad. And usually when you're carted off, it's not a good look. But not only that, we do have something from Ian Rappaport that he actually posted something on Twitter about 7 hours ago, or maybe it was earlier actually in this day. He says, hashtag Arizona Cardinals, tight end Max Williams is feared to have suffered a major season knee injury on Sunday. Sources say basically Williams, who has emerged as an important target for Kyler Murray, took a shot to his right knee and was quickly ruled out. So that on its own, I mean, even without this tweet from Ian Rappaport, which obviously credible guy, but man, I think all Cardinals fans knew, like the moment we saw the card come out, like I think he was done. Not maybe for the entirety of the season, but for a good extent of time. But I think this proves that most likely his season is done for the Cardinals. And in terms of Rodney Hudson, nothing really new. We most likely will be getting something maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, or something kind of to talk about from there. But Max Garcia did pretty decent. I mean, granted, obviously we would prefer Rodney Hudson when we play the Cleveland Browns, but I think Max Garcia did pretty decent when it came down to it.
Garcia's a guy who's got starting experience in the NFL with Denver. He's not, there's a reason he's a backup, but there's worse situations you could have. And I was in the Discord, with game day. And that's also, I'm going to say, is my chance to plug the Discord. If you're not if you haven't joined the Discord server, I've got the link, the information's down below. Game day, there's a bunch of us in there just kind of chatting. And when that injury happened, I pretty much commented like, yeah, that looks like it's season ending.
Yeah.
I forget exactly the wording, but it was pretty clear when you saw the way that leg moved. Rodney, it depends on, is it broken ribs, bruised ribs? It depends how bad it is, but seems like it's not likely to be, season ending. Hopefully hopefully he'll be back, maybe miss a week or two. We'll see. Yeah, obviously you hate to see that, but the injury bug comes for us all. Every team gets it. So this is where it's at, where it hit at this point. We came into the game a little banged up. Every team has to deal with that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So this does kind of lead to this question, because you mentioned a lot of people are feeling doom and gloom, and are you worried about this offense? Because it kind of did stall out a bit, like we talked about. And is this a sign of something else to come, or was this just a blip? How do you feel about the offense today?
I'm not worried. I'm not. I think we just kind of seen an old-fashioned division game, honestly. I think the Cardinals and the 49ers know each other very well. Even if the Cardinals are, 0-7 or, 1-7 on the year, and they're playing a tough 49, we always come out to fight, always. And sometimes we split it, even though we're having a bad season. It's just kind of the way that it is. A division matchup, it can go either way. And I think that's what we saw today. They had a very good game plan on Kyler Murray. Every time he tried to run out of the pocket, for the most part, he was blocked. And I think it might have been maybe because Trey Lance was a good, Kyler Murray in their practice. So I'm not worried at all. Now it sucks that we're not going to have the production of Max Williams, because he was really starting to come into his own. And obviously, being that we have a tight end, that's going to give us that production we're all going to get excited for, because we don't really have or never really had a tight end that's like, oh yeah, great stuff. So I'm not worried at all. I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this offense has too many weapons. I know some people feel like, oh no, they figured us out, and every defensive coordinator is working to figure out every offense, and every year they do figure out a few things, but teams still manage, to put up points and yards, and we'll be fine as long as Kyler's healthy. Really, right? That's exactly really what it comes down to. There's enough depth. I think our offensive line, we have some decent depth guys like Max Garcia. Obviously we got a couple guys that have gone down with injury, but our receiving room we know is deep. Tight end is a concern, but our offense doesn't lean on the tight end heavily. In fact, we were all surprised at Max Williams. So I'm not worried. Like I said, it was a division game against a team with a good defense, with some good personnel. And I think it was commenting on one of my someone was commenting on one of my videos, and we were kind of conversing back and forth, so to speak, in the responses, and basically the sentiment was like, sometimes the game plan is have a guy like Nick Bosa on your roster, right? And not everyone can replicate what San Francisco did this week, because not everyone has Nick Bosa, right? And some of the other guys have there. So I'm not worried. I think they'll get right. If this is our bad game, if this is our down game on offense, and we still won it, that's a good sign, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I want to say, hey, real quick, we got Arizona Animal, Tapatio Man, that just jumped in. Thanks for being here. And then I'm sure you saw this, but big news: John Gruden resigned. Yeah. I don't know. It's not Cardinals, so we don't necessarily have to get into that. But nothing shocking about that with what's come out, and that's. I think everyone saw that coming, right?
Yeah, the way the cookie crumbles.
Right, absolutely. So now that we've kind of asked some of those questions, we're going to actually do a little bit of a Q&A here. So if you have a question, Mike's going to be with us for about another 10 minutes or so. It's always helpful if you put a Q in front of it, but I think there were a couple of questions in here that I'll try to get back to, but go ahead and put your questions in, but let's go with this one, because I know how much you love Keim, and I'll be honest, maybe there's a part of me that loves seeing you have to walk back on your Keim and Kingsbury. Maybe that's my little evilness, but it's all in good nature. So I'll let you, Keim fan, super fan number one, respond to this one.
Number one fan, huh? So do you guys think that Keim is a better drafter now that we've seen all these players he drafted playing great? Isaiah, K1, Buddha, etc. Okay. I don't know. I think when it comes down to the draft, it's all just based off of, obviously evaluation is a big focal point, but it's very subjective. It's very subjective to what the GM or the scouting, people think it's going to work for their scheme. We've seen players get drafted like Hassan Reddick that really didn't work because the coaching staff thought that, it was a really good idea to put him as an inside linebacker. And now when we put him on the outside, he flourished. And now look at him in the Panthers. So I think it just really depends. Will I say he's a better drafter? I wouldn't say he's a better drafter, but I do say that, hey, kudos to hitting on every single one of this because honestly, if we didn't get the production and all these names that he mentioned, we wouldn't probably be in this situation right now. We have to build in the draft. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't really base off of, building on free agency because you're spending a lot of money. Like where your most talent comes from is the cheap people that you're able to go ahead and get them on the rookie deal. So, hey, because we have all this, it's probably where we are. This is probably why we are where we are right now because of all this production. So I wouldn't so much say he's a better drafter, but hey, keep it going. I ain't mad.
I'm going to express an unpopular opinion. I actually think he's not bad at evaluations because you talked about one of the big problems. Players have been played out of position. They've taken some chances on players like Robert Kimdiche who had the talent but didn't work out for head case reasons, whatever you want to call it. They had a few situations like Jonathan Cooper where that was injury. That was really unfortunate. But, I mean, he came up as a scout and was the director of player personnel before he was the general manager, right? And you don't advance to those ranks without being good at player evaluations. I think what has really hurt things, I think he's good at making trades. I think he's good at I do think he's good at evaluating draft talent, but I think there's something where he messes up is in his dealings with people. And with all the coaches coming and going and new schemes coming in and trying to put players in the wrongs, and then a new coach comes in, they kind of take over these guys that they didn't draft. They weren't there for the draft and they play them in the wrong spots. And then you have guys, he's had some hits that are no longer here, like Honey Badger, right? And, and John Brown, for where they drafted him, has had a good career. So I think he evaluates players well, but somewhere between draft day and when they exit, they screw up the players. That's what I think is going on. But I think they've got some continuity here, right? They've had 3 years now. They're kind of doing a better job of playing in the right spots and got a little bit more luck with the health situation. And obviously they've got the quarterback. So I don't know. That's my opinion. It's probably not a popular opinion because people still want to hate on him. But
well, I mean, honestly, getting the quarterback, that's key. Like that's legit where you start from. The moment we got K1, everybody else is kind of like that chess piece where K1 is the king or the queen, wherever you value, your king or queen while playing chess. But everybody else just kind of falls into the domino effect. And K1 is a huge, huge focal point. And yeah, kudos to him for, pulling the trigger and going back-to-back QBs. But I'll give him kudos, man. He's definitely did a good job.
Want to say hey to Jovan Silva, who's joined since we started. Got a question. All right, we'll pile on to your fan club because do you feel like Kingsbury is the guy?
Now I say he's doing better. Yeah, I definitely do think that we would have lost games last year that because we were a different team. I definitely do. He's taking the step in the right direction. Yeah, we're 5-0 for a reason. So to say that he's not the guy when we're 5-0 would be kind of stupid of me to say. Honestly, I think he definitely took a step in the right direction, and I definitely think he could be the guy. But we'll see how this plays out, though.
I think there are still questions among many people, both locally and in terms of the national media, on. Is he the guy, or would a different coach be doing even better with this personnel, with the roster he has? Where I'm kind of settling in on this is I think he has shown that he has the potential to become the guy. Because with Kingsbury, again, a young coach, learning the NFL, he's made some mistakes, but he's making improvements. So I don't think he's arrived as the guy yet, despite the record and how good things have been. But I feel like we've seen enough progress in his play calling and what's going on with this team that he's shown he might be able to become that guy. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like you said as well. I mean, and honestly, winning shuts people up.
The best deodorant.
Best fear for everything. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So as long as we keep winning, nobody's going to question Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah. So do you think, here's the next question, do you think a receiving tight end would be good for the Cards like Zach Ertz?
Yeah, definitely. Now we talked a little bit about this on my stream a little earlier here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were asking like, oh, Zach Ertz, or maybe getting OJ Howard, or somebody also mentioned what was his name, Hurts from the Falcons. I forgot his first name. Long hair guy, red hair.
Oh, Hayden Hurst. Yeah.
Yes, there you go. Hayden Hurst. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Somebody also mentioned him as well. And yeah, obviously we would benefit from getting more pieces for Kyler Murray. Yeah, definitely. But I don't think it's going to happen, at least for these next few weeks. Now, maybe if we really go through these, these weeks before the trade deadline comes in, they're like, hey, we really need somebody there to be that Max Williams for Kyler Murray. Because like, let's just say, for example, everything unravels and something crazy happens. Then obviously I would hope that, Steve Keim in the front office could be like, hey, let's start doing some trades in the trade deadline. Let's see if we can bring some, or maybe even a little earlier, to see if we can bring a tight end that would be a receiver. But as of right now, I think we're going to be rolling with Demetrius Harris as well as Darrell Daniels. And I'm really hoping that maybe Ross Travis comes up. Maybe we give him an opportunity.
I think they'll probably bring him up unless they sign someone else. I think you alluded to this, and this is 100% right. There's really two questions here. I mean, the question as it is asked by Colton, do you think a receiving tight end would be good for the Cardinals like Zach Ertz? Of course it would.
Right.
But the more important question right now is, are they going to pursue one?
Right.
Right. And that's the question where I think it's less likely they make any kind of major trade. I think what's more likely is they bring in some guys off the street, some veterans who might be out of work. They might bring in someone off another practice squad, kind of churn the bottom of the roster. But of all the names that are mentioned, the name I would love to see, to me, Hayden Hurst would actually be, if they could get him for a third-day pick, I don't know if they'd be able to pull that off. But obviously they traded for him, in Atlanta, and then they drafted, Pitts. And so maybe he could be had, but I think he'd be a nice fit. Another former Ravens tight end, right? Like Max Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to say hey to Bearcat Barrett, who's here. Toughest game left on the schedule.
Ooh. Well, I can probably tell you, the soonest one, the Browns.
Coming up, right?
Yeah, coming up would be the Browns. Yeah, I definitely love the mentality, the 1-0 mentality, because you never know, man. It's any given Sunday. I know we have the Texans right after, the Browns, and some people are like, "Oh, if we beat the Browns, we're pretty much 7-0." I'm like, let's not talk about that. Let's first beat the Browns. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do against them. It's gonna be tough, man. If we don't have Rodney Hudson on the line. That defensive line is pretty scary for the Browns. So, and they have a very good offense too. And it's mainly spearheaded through the run game, Nick Chubb, as well as Kareem Hunt, an amazing duo they have back there. So it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, I think there's 4 games you have to consider for this. Obviously the Browns game, the Packers game, anytime you're playing Aaron Rodgers, the next Rams game, and then the Cowboys game. Cowboys have been looking really good.
They have.
So for me, which one do I think is? I think the toughest game on the schedule is the Rams game, because I think they're the best team we're playing left. So I'll go with that as the toughest game, even though we just beat them very handedly, right?
Right.
How do you think?
Feel, I'm sorry, I have a question for you. How do you feel about the Panthers game? I honestly think that might be a sneaky, pretty hard game as well. We don't really have very much success against the Panthers, and they got Stephon Gilmore, and their whole secondary looks pretty darn good right now. What do you feel about them?
They have played us tough, including recently, like last year. But I think I don't think their offense is good enough to kind of keep pace with us. Their defense has been tough, but then the Cowboys expose them. But the Cowboys expose them with their running game, and we're not going to run as much. I just feel like the clock has struck midnight for Sam Darnold and his Cinderella kind of experience, and I think we're going to see them coming down to earth. I still think they may end up being around a 500 team. I think they had a great start. I do think they have a good defense, but I think, if you told me, if someone from the future told me, hey, we lost to them, I wouldn't be shocked.
Right.
That's
fair.
So, Type 2 man, do you think David Johnson would be a good fit for our scheme if he was with us? No. I mean, he had the best single season for a running back I think I've ever seen for a Cardinal. But after that, no, right?
Yeah.
We'll I know we want to respect your time, so we'll have this be your last question with a guy that we both know, Mark Jackson.
Sweet.
What do you guys think about Cliff running 11 personnel with one blocking tight end and Rondell as running back? Rondell did rush well. Do you think he would keep up? So do the one running back, one tight end with a blocking per tight end, 3 wide receivers, and then using that kind of alignment to set up Rondell more for some rushes. What do you think?
I say no. I don't want to. I like what Rondell Moore's doing in terms of rushing it, but like to make him not. And I don't think he's saying make him the primary running back, but just basically have him, in certain packages to do that. I say no. I like what James Conner's doing. I like what Chase Edmonds doing. I don't want to take the ball out of their hands. They're already splitting carries, and they don't think it's that big of a deal because they're probably like really, oh yeah, cool. And I know James Conner is going to be more of the guy that's going to be in your red zone touchdown type of guy. So I would want to take the ball out of their hands. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that. I like getting the ball to Rondell in a lot of different ways, but if you're using him in the running game, I think you want to use him on jet sweeps and reverses and kind of run plays that catch the defense off guard and where he can make really big plays. If you just line him up as a halfback and run up the middle, I'd rather see James Conner and Chase Edmonds take those snaps because I don't want Rondell Moore to get injured either.
Yeah, that's exactly my thought too.
Yeah, so I would say no to that. I mean, yeah, you could do it, but I think you're going to get much better results if you do things that are a little more gadgety, if that makes sense, and catch the defense kind of off guard.
Yeah,
so, Mike, yeah, absolutely, and I'm not injured. So I want to respect your time. Obviously, I think everyone here probably knows who you are, but if anyone here is not subscribed, Mike's links are below the AZ Sports Fan. Mike, anything you want to say before you head out?
No, appreciate you for having me on, man. Next up, Browns. That's all I'm thinking from here on out.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, well, Mike's going to head out. Thanks for being here, man. I always enjoy our Mondays hanging out and catching up on the game. So we'll see you next week, hopefully after another Victory Monday.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, man. All right, man. Later, peace out.
All right, take care, man. All right, so I'm going to hang out, and I will do a little bit of Q&A with you all here. Thanks, everyone's here. Before you let me just take a quick minute to do a couple things. First, I want to thank my channel members. If you let me take down. There we go. I've got a couple new channel members, and if you're weren't aware, there's if you want to support the channel, you can do so as a member. And every live stream, I just take a minute to recognize my channel members. Thank you for your support. Obviously, though, I appreciate everyone who's here watching and who watches my videos. That is also obviously a great way to support the channel, is watch videos as I post them. So let me get back to some of the questions and Q&A here. So we left off with Mark's question. If I get lost, I'm going to apologize. Here we go. Okay. Yep. Okay. Do you think J.J. Watt will get his first sack this Sunday versus the Browns? He had one coming for a minute. I mean, Watt has been awesome. He has done a great job of putting pressure, on on the defense. He hasn't gotten the sacks, but he has done a really, really outstanding job, and he's really wrecked a lot of things. Do I think that's not the game where I think he's most like, if you say, well, which game is he most likely to? That's not the game I would pick, because I think they have a good offensive line and they run the ball a lot, do a lot of bootleg stuff. So if I had to bet, I'd say no, but I think he'll still be disruptive. I would love to see it, though. Obviously that he's made such a huge difference, in so many plays, but the sacks are eluding him. What do you say this is the bread and butter play for the Cardinals defense? That's a good question. So I don't know. Here's what I know. One of the things Vance Joseph likes to do is he likes to bring his inside linebackers up and show a blitz, right? And then sometimes he'll blitz one or more of them, and sometimes he'll have them back into coverage. If you remember last year in the overtime win against Seattle, that was the play where Isaiah Simmons got the interception that really kind of sealed the game. Is he showed blitz and then he kind of backpedaled and went into coverage and got that interception. I don't know if I'd say I don't know if that's their bread and butter play in terms of most effective, but that's something I know Vance Joseph likes to do is show blitz with bring a bunch of guys up, show blitz with multiple with like 6 guys, 7 guys sometimes, and then make the offense guess how many of those guys are actually blitzing. So that's the closest thing I have to an answer from my perspective. Let's see if we got some more questions in here. Just a comment here. Hurst or OJ Howard would be OJ Howard. Like I know I've heard people mentioning him, from Tampa Bay, and obviously they've got Gronk down there, but I think they like him and they want to keep him around. He was a first round pick. I know he has had some injury problems. They exercised the 5th-year option on his rookie contract, which tells me they want to keep him around. So I think that Tampa Bay is not going to let him go unless you overpay for him, give up way too much. I think I think the way they're looking at the long view is when Gronk retires again, they want him to be their tight end of the future. So, but obviously I'd love him on the team. I just don't think that's going to happen. Which catch was nastier, Rondale Moore's or DeAndre Hopkins? Okay, so nastier. I got to go with Rondale's. I mean, they were both crazy good catches, crazy tough catches, both highly contested. If you watch the replay of the Rondale Moore catch, they could have called PI on it because the defender was all over him, dragging those toes, the way he stretched. I mean, to me, and I was talking about that me and Kyler Burr on my stream last night. I think we were talking about this last night. The best catch we've seen since the Hail Murray, right? So I think that one is, but a lot of good catches, right? All right. So Marco didn't play this game. Do you know why? Hamilton Whitaker got the nod for him, and Murphy, thoughts on their play? Yeah, Marco was banged up. I don't know exactly what the injury is, but he didn't play because of injury. Is my understanding. So, they played well. I mean, you look at it like they had a few lapses, but this secondary didn't get exposed. Now they were going against a rookie, Trey Lance, in his first NFL game, and he was running more than he was passing. So there is that. But sorry. No, I think they played reasonably well. The secondary as a whole has played well this season, and better than people expected. And this is, going into this game, people thought that it was going to be a shootout because of that. So, absolutely thought they played well. Mark, thank you for the kind words. Really appreciate your support. You're really good support of both of our channels, part of the backbone. So for sure, appreciate you. Let's see. Questions. Most tradable players on the Cardinals currently. So, I mean, depends what you mean by tradable. If you mean that people would trade for, I mean, obviously anyone would trade for Hopkins or Kyler Murray, but I'm going to assume what you kind of mean by this is the combination of a player that is expendable but also valuable. And that's a tough one because I don't know that we have a lot of expendable players, but I mean, maybe you would look at, any of our wide receivers that the Cardinals would be willing to give up. I mean, I know Isabella hasn't played much, but he might be because he's a former second-round pick, we're not using him, so he might be. I don't think there's a lot of players that I would view as expendable on this team. You know, that I think, in fact, I think Andy Isabella might be the only player we might be willing to give up that anyone might even consider trading for, and I don't think his value is high right now. So Mark saying that Kime should get an onside blocking vet tight end, shake at the bottom of that room, who will step up. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Do you think Kime's looking around the league for a tight end to replace Max? I'm really hoping that Max isn't too bad shape. He was getting the season going and getting hot. Yeah, I mean, I think Max is probably done for the season, and I think they're looking around, and it wouldn't shock me if they're making phone calls. They're going to explore options. I'd be surprised if they make a big trade, but who knows? It's possible. I just would be a little bit surprised by that. But I think we're going to see someone else on the active roster. I don't know what moves they made thus far. But I think Ross Travis, if he's not already on the active roster, will be, unless they sign someone else. But here's the one thing I feel pretty confident in, is that someone will be added. A tight end will be added to either. They're going to bring one more tight end into the building. It might be that they bring up, Ross Travis from the practice squad and then sign another guy to the practice squad. It might be that they sign someone to the active roster and they keep Ross Travis in the practice squad. So it may involve some movement with the practice squad, but I think they're going to bring at least one more person into the building, a tight end. That's my best guess. Well, Tom Genius stuff. Yeah, so genius in your own mind there. Yeah, I mean, I think he's injured, isn't he? Let's see. Once Austin, if I didn't already say, hey, thanks for being here. Do you guys think we'll get any value from any Isabella? I don't think we will. Honestly, I think what's going to happen is maybe next year he'll have a role in this offense. But he might just play out his rookie deal and then go somewhere else. He might even get cut. We'll see. Maybe they trade him, but if they trade him, they're getting a day 3 pick. I think that's what they're getting, 6th round, 7th round, just because, why would you trade for that guy who hasn't shown much, right? Why would you give up much for him, I should say? Ralphie, thanks for being here. Our run defense ranked 28th. The Browns have some awesome running backs who needs to step up the most to stop the Cleveland run game. Well, I think the position that needs to step up to help our run defense are inside linebackers, and Simmons has been great. They haven't been playing Collins a lot, though he had his season high in terms of snaps. It was somewhere in the 30s, so he played a lot more. It seems like a lot of people feel like Jordan Hicks and his, is kind of the reason our run defense is struggling, and that may very well be the case. But I think our inside linebackers need to do, a better job of stopping those running backs when they get past the defensive line, and that's where that's happened. And yeah, this Browns team runs the ball really well. That's a concern. And that might be our first loss. We'll see, right? So yeah, thanks for the question. You say Hicks. I'm wondering if you're saying as the most tradable. Maybe I thought about him as a possibility, right? Okay. JJ Watt has played really well, So I don't know that he can. I don't know if it's fair to ask him to step up more. Collins, when he's been in, has played well. I think we just need to see him on the field more so that he can contribute, because he's faster than Hicks. And if Zaven Collins is in there, I think has potential to be a better run stopper. So hopefully we can see him in there more. World Peace, what's going on? Thanks for being here. A lot of people fits the tight end. Listen, this comes up all the time. I think Fitzgerald could do it. I just don't think he wants to. So, but yeah. Zach had 1 sack because the other one counts as a tackle for loss. It was run option play, and he got the. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I was wondering if that might have been the case as well. Thank you. that makes sense. So that there was the tackles for loss. Robert, thank you for being here. Think we will see Megawatt again. I think we'll see it again this season. That was a cool, that play, that formation. I don't think we'll see it all the time, but I do think we will see it at some point again this season. I don't think it is something that we'll only see once. Strategy, thank you for being here. I know we talked about this before. Larry Fitz tight end needs his ring. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Red Sea, thanks for being here, buddy. Good to see you. Yeah, Tim Tebow, no, he couldn't. Yeah, no, right. Let's see if there's any other questions in here. Expendable, in my opinion, if you want to get a household name, Jalen Thompson, Kirk Pugh, those guys are near contract end. Yeah, I don't think any. I mean, Kirk is in the last year of his rookie deal. And before the season started, we talked about him as being kind of the most tradable guy. But I just think he's been so good, and I think he's important to this offense. So I think we keep him. I don't think they're going to trade. I don't think they're trading any of those guys. I think they're looking at this team as a playoff team. Those guys are all key contributors. So I think if they're trading either a truly expendable player, like Andy Isabella, or they're just trading draft picks. I think they're going to try to keep the contributors. Mark, thank you for being here. He's got to head out. Appreciate you being here. Red Sea's got a question. Do the Cardinals move Hicks before or after the trade line and start Collins there on out? I mean, maybe. I think they'd like to keep Hicks for his veteran leadership. I would like to see Collins play more. I think Tanner Vallejo has played well. So, when he's played over the last couple of years, he's played limited snaps, but played well. So I feel like the inside linebacker situation, I think they'd be okay without Hicks, but I have a feeling they're going to keep him around. He's a team captain and such. Not that means you can't trade him, but I don't think they're going to. But I want to see Zayden Collins in there more, right? So, absolutely. So, as of right now, what position and who should we aim to draft next year? Oh, good question. I was looking ahead, but so I think next year, I think I would like to see us add a couple of these positions. I think they do need to add one more cornerback. I think you're going to have, obviously, Byron Murphy Jr. is coming back. I think Marco Wilson has showed some promise. We'll see what happens with Tay Gowan. We haven't, I was surprised we didn't see him play. Maybe they'll keep Alford. He's played well, but it would be nice to get another cornerback, even if it's in the second or third round, to add to that kind of mix for the future. I think they need to draft a good pass rusher, like even if it's someone to develop. I think they need. Chandler Jones had that week one, and I, like everyone else, saying we need to pay that man. He's put good pressure on quarterback since, but hasn't had any other sacks. I'm not 100% sure they are going to bring him back. I don't know. Hopefully they do, but I think they need to invest in that pass rushing room, even if it's a guy who needs a year to develop. The interior defensive line, I think they need to get a top line player at that position. They've got JJ Watt. He's a stud, but he's an older player. They've got Zach, but they've got a lot of guys that are like mid day 2 and 3 picks. Zach Allen, Lecky Fotu, Rashad Lawrence. And those guys can be a good kind of mix of rotational guys. But I'd like to see them get like a guy who has the potential to be a Pro Bowl type player to mix in there to get a good interior defensive lineman. Those are the main positions I'd like to see. I think they'll need to or should draft another running back, like somewhere between rounds 3 and 5, or maybe even 6. Because Chase Edmonds, I think he's on last year of his deal. James Conner, don't know if he'll, how long they're going to keep him around. I mean, he's done very well for them, but it's always good to add some of those guys to the mix. So those are the positions for me I'm looking at. And then maybe offensive line. It'd be nice to get another offensive lineman in here, maybe interior offensive lineman to develop to take over when Pugh moves on or retires, and Hudson, whenever he retires, hopefully he'll be around for a few more years. But so yeah, those are the positions I'm looking at. If Patriots continue these games, do you think there's a chance we could get J.C. Jackson? It's unlikely, but I would love it. I mean, there's always a chance. I just don't think that the Cardinals are making a big move. I think what we'd have to give up for him, we'll see if we can get him for if we could get him for like even an early day 3 pick, like, round 4 or 5, maybe. The cornerback room has been playing well. I know it'd be nice to improve it, upgrade it, but like when you look at this defense, I don't know. I don't think they're going to like give away early draft capital for a position, even a cornerback position, when they're playing reasonably well. And the defense has been able to work with that. So if we can get them for a really good deal, maybe, but I don't think if it's going to take an early pick, I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. Right. Let's see. Question. Let's see. Do you think Cliff still has parts of the playbook he still needs to dust off later in the season, or have we seen most of everything? Oh, I'm sure. Like, I think most coaches keep a few wrinkles, for later in the season that, they always keep a few things that they for later in the season. So I'm sure there's a few wrinkles that we haven't seen. That would be my guess, at least. Mentioning Trey Burton might be a most viable option tight end for agent pickup, playmaker, but inconsistent. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of guy you can pick up, and I wouldn't hate that. I mean, get a guy who's a veteran, bring him in here, right? For sure. Do you think I'm being overconfident thinking we could limit their running game and make Baker look bad? Here's what I think. Maybe a little bit on the first part. You never know. I mean, Chubb is a little more of a power back, but he's still fast. Maybe they have a good game against him. I think the most likely path to victory for the Cardinals is we get some interceptions on Baker, right? Because I think we're better against we are better against the pass and the rush. Our offense keeps putting up points, and that they can't stop us, and they can't stick with the run game because we're ahead, right? And then they can't, and that's how we kind of slow down the running game, not by having the game plan to stop their running backs, but more because game script and game flow and and they're down by a couple touchdowns in the second half, and they have to pass the ball to try to get back into it. So I think that's the more likely path, but we'll see, right? Are you not thrilled with Eno Benjamin? No, I like Eno Benjamin. I think I think he'll be a good part of this running back room. I think we'll see him next year, probably more. I'm just a believer that like draft running backs like at least every other year, if not once a year in the middle rounds. I don't believe in drafting in the first round. If you maybe in the second round, but even then you're usually going to have to pay those guys. I don't believe in paying big contracts for running backs because this team our running game has been effective with a 4th round pick in Chase Edmonds and a guy we signed, James Conner that we didn't have to pay a lot for. You can get those kinds of guys. So, Eno Benjamin's part of that, but I think your running back room, you need 3 running backs. So when I say drafting a running, I'm guessing this is a response to me saying drafting a running back. Part of that is with the idea being that, 2 years from now, I think our running back room is Eno Benjamin, hopefully someone we draft, and maybe we keep Connor or Edmonds. But I just, I don't think, and maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe we'll keep all 3 of those. But I see Eno Benjamin as part of that future, but you need more than just him, right? Are you disappointed in Keim not targeting Gilmore when he was available for so cheap? I think there's always more to that story. One, we don't know that he wasn't trying, but at the same time, do we have the cap room, right? And Gilmore, I think probably wants a big contract extension. Are they going to extend and pay him? And I just feel like looking at the future, we're not going to be, I don't think we're going to want to pay an aging cornerback when we've got a bunch of guys like Byron Murphy Jr., Kyler Murray, that we're going to have to pay. So I'm not as upset about that as other people are, because I don't even know if we have the cap room to bring him in. And even if so, I know everyone's really been on the trade for Gilmore bandwagon. I haven't been. I'm not saying, he's a great player, but when you look at roster building strategies and where you're allocating your resources, I just don't know that you could afford to fit him in there and keep some of the players we all want to keep. But we'll see, right? Anders Animal was talking about it. He believes he's a really big fan of Victor Dimukeje. I like the Dimukeje pick. I hope he develops. You think he's, what's his name? Like James Harrison, I think, and hopefully he'll develop, right? Do you think Vance Joseph may take some head coaching offers somewhere else this offseason? If this defense keeps playing like it is, I think he's going to get some looks. Before the season started, I did a 50 predictions video, and one of those predictions was that Vance Joseph would be talked about as a head coaching candidate after the season. So I think it's absolutely possible. We'll see. But, man, if this defense – again, if you look at that Minnesota game, that's one game where our defense really struggled in the first half. But in the second half, really kind of shut that down. This defense is actually looks really good. So wouldn't shock me, right? Let's see. See if there's any other questions in here. Yeah, you think they have a little over $5 million cap space right now. So I don't think, like I said, I don't think they could have fit him in, Gilmore, but I could be wrong, right? Yeah, James Harrison 2.0, you're saying, yeah. I know this is wishful thinking, but I wish Larry Fitzgerald. Yeah, listen, I love Larry Fitzgerald. He is one of my favorite, players of all time. He is the consummate professional. Every superlative you can say about him is deserved. I do wonder, like I've talked about this before, I just don't see where he fits in this offense. I know Lando's saying this, and a lot of people say it's tight end. And listen, he could do it if he wanted to. I don't think he wants to come in and play a new position. If there's an injury I think the only way we're going to see him this year is if there's a wide receiver injury. That's what I think. And obviously we don't want that to happen, but if there is, we could see him. Who knows what happens? Crazy things happen, but I just don't think we'll see him, right? Williams out, so Larry he could come back. I just don't think it's happening, but we'll see, right? Any other questions? We're coming on an hour here. I just want to make sure if you had a question that I make sure I get that, but we'll wrap up soon if there aren't any other questions. But I certainly appreciate everyone being here, all the comments and questions. But listen, this team is 5-0. It's a victory Monday. It's a hard fought win, but as we talked about, your team, seeing that the team can win these kinds of games is also encouraging. We'd love to be able to win all of those games 37 to 15 or whatever. But sometimes you got to win a 17-10 game, right? Okay, here's got a couple questions coming in. How do you think the Cardinals improve their run defense schematically? This is a good question. That's a really good question. The tough part is I think that the Vance Joseph's defense is predicated on a lot of pressure. I think that is one of the ways he has helped this cornerback room that, we were concerned about coming in look better than it has. And the tough part about that is I think what teams are doing is they're scheming their run games so that are to kind of take advantage of our blitzes. I think that's part of what's going on. So the tough part is I think if we change the scheme too much, we might start giving up, more yardage in the passing game. So I'd still rather do that. I really think the key. I think the key to stopping the running game is. I do think Zaven Collins is a big part of that key, and I know that's more personnel than scheme. If you want to allow the answer of play more defensive sets that involve Zaven Collins in the Mike position, linebacker position, that to me is the answer. There might be some things they can do in terms of scheming in the gaps, and I'm not an expert in those things. But yeah, that's probably how I look at it. But someone who knows a lot more about schemes could probably give a much better answer. But yeah, that's kind of how I see it. But again, I don't know that that's the greatest answer. I hope that's not too disappointing there, Simon. But it's a great question. Any idea Jordan Phillips says needs some DT help would be great this week. Yeah, I think he's still on. I think he is still on the IR. I don't know when he'll be back. Here's the tough part with that is he is more of a pass rusher than a run stopper. Even though he's this really big defensive lineman, he's huge. I don't know that he's going to be better at stopping the run than some of the other guys we have. I think guys like Rashard Lawrence are better at stopping the run. So I don't know when he's going to be back, or if they'll keep him on the IR for a while. But yeah, I'm not sure, but it would help. It'd be depth, but I don't know that it's going to be a huge game changer. So I think I might have already talked about this, Edward, but I'll just recap. So how I think we win against the Browns, I think our offense has to get back on track and turn this into a shootout. Or I should say turn into a shootout, but make it to where the Browns have to pass. And then our defense has to do what they do well, which is defend against the pass and maybe force some turnovers. But if we fall behind, it's going to be a little bit tough because they're going to be able to run the ball. But if we can get a lead and make it so they have to kind of abandon the run and maybe force a few turnovers to get that to happen, I think that's how we beat the Browns. Have they given an update? Not that I've heard. We talked about that earlier. I think it's safe to assume he's out for the year. With the way that looked. So best case scenario, maybe he'd come back late in the season, but with the kind of injury and the kind of recovery time, I just can't see that happening. Who do you fear from the AFC the most in the Super Bowl match? See what I did there? I like what you did there. I like that thinking. The Cardinals being the Super Bowl. For me, it's Buffalo. Obviously Mahomes is Mahomes, but Kansas City just doesn't have a good defense this year. I mean, don't get me wrong, they could still beat us, but Buffalo has an offense and a defense, and that would be the team I would be most concerned about in a Super Bowl matchup if we are fortunate enough to see our Cardinals in the Super Bowl. Are you concerned with Kyler's arm bicep? He might have injured. It looks like it affected him. Thank you for the question, Bird Alert. Am I concerned with it? Yes, a little bit, because last year he got banged up, and that's what kind of derailed our season late. So if he is banged up, and so much of this offense, is based on what he can do with his arm and his legs, and this year more so his arm, than last year. So I'm concerned about it. But I am not as concerned as I was about it last year, or I should say, I don't think it's going to be the same situation as last year, because one, I think our team as a whole is better this year. I think we're playing better. So let's say he was banged up and they decided to give him a rest for a couple games. One, it's happening early in the season, so he's got time to get it right. It's certainly not a serious enough injury that he had to leave the game, right? So if they can, and I also feel like we have a more capable backup quarterback. Colt McCoy has started games in this league. Yes, he's not an elite quarterback by any stretch, but to me, he is much more capable and equipped of running this offense than Chris Streveler was. So if Kyler's banged up and they need to sit him for a couple weeks, is that, I think Colt could come in and maybe even win a game. And I don't think it's the kind of injury that's going to keep that if they do need to sit him, it's not the kind of injury, at this point that's, that's going to keep him out for a long, long stretch. So I'm concerned in that it affects his play, and if it lingers, it could cost us a few games. But I'm not concerned that it's going to keep us out of the playoffs like it did last year, based on, at this point at least, right? Trade Devin Kennard. I mean, he's played well. He might be an expendable player. I just don't know that you're going to get a lot for him, right? Have you heard anything news on Murray's shoulder? Not really. So and that's a good. Is it his shoulder or his bicep? Because they were looking at his bicep, and they were putting a pad. I don't know if there's something else with his shoulder or if it was both. I don't know. So that's a tough question. Who's going to have a better game, Murray or Mayfield? If Murray's healthy, Murray, or even if he's healthy-ish. I think he's a better quarterback. The Browns have put Mayfield in the perfect situation to maximize what he does, but he doesn't win games for them himself. They win as a team, and they put him in a situation where he does what he does well, but he is not. He's not the quarterback Murray is. So I think Murray's going to have a better game. Obviously, I want him to have a better game. I think, but even not even going the full fan, he's it's my team. I want him to do better. Looking at things through just a probabilities lens, like the question of what's most likely to happen at a lowest common denominator level. If you have two quarterbacks, you're asking who's going to have the better game. The better quarterback is more likely to have a better game. And I think Kyler's the better quarterback. And you add to that, he's got better receiving weapons. I know Odell Beckham Jr. is a good receiver, but he hasn't been the same. I just think the Cardinals receiving core overall is better than the Browns. So, yes, their offense is good, and a lot of it's that running game. But I think the probabilities all favor Kyler between being the better quarterback and having the better weapons. But we'll see what happens, right? Let's see. Sorry for the question. I don't think, no reason to apologize for the question. Questions are always welcome as long as they're not, as long as they're not, how can I say? Any question that's asked in a courteous way is always welcome. Even if I already answered it earlier, that's okay. I know people come in and out of the stream, so I no problem. Yeah, this is why one of the reasons too, Allen has been playing really well, so it's another reason I would be concerned, right? Haven't heard any news on Hudson. Obviously, we're all going to be watching that, right? So yeah, and yeah, the Cardinals beat the Browns last. Was it last year or 2 years ago? I know they beat them the last time they met up. Kyler got the better of his buddy there. Let's see. Oh, no worries. That's okay, man. I'm glad you're here. Blueberry, one of my channel members, thank you for being here. Earlier I acknowledged all the channel members, so if you missed that, but thank you for being here. You're worried about him as well. Thank goodness we're 5-0. Yeah, if he's hurting, there's options on the table. Yeah, I think there's time, there's options, right? Yeah. Which rookie is the most productive that we drafted this year? Okay, so I think productive. So I mean the quick and easy answers should be Rondale Moore. The one thing I would say is Marco Wilson, although he hasn't played as well, he's had an important role as in that cornerback room and had to step up. But I'm still going to go with Rondale Moore. But those two, have been really good draft picks, obviously. Yeah. Strevler really kind of, that I wasn't. Yeah, like Colt McCoy is an NFL quarterback. He's not a guy you want starting, but he's an NFL quarterback. He can throw the ball. He can run an offense. You see every year you see a team bring in a backup quarterback when someone gets injured, and they win a couple games. They maybe they have a stretch of 4 games and they win 2 of them with a backup quarterback, right? And that's the kind of thing Colt McCoy can bring you. If Kyler Murray had to miss 3 or 4 games, depending on the matchup and the opponent, Colt McCoy is the kind of quarterback that can come in and maybe win half of those games with a good supporting cast, and that's something I don't feel confident about with Strebler. Do I think we can get Jonathan Smith? I mean, most anyone can be out for the right price, but I don't think the price. And I know he hasn't performed particularly well since he was signed by the Patriots. People thought he would have a breakout season, and that offense has been kind of iffy. I mean, maybe I just don't think we're likely to go after it, and I don't think he's the kind of tight end we're looking for in this offense. I think they want someone who's a little bigger, but I could be wrong. Thank you for being here, Austin. Appreciate you. Go Cards, 100%. Yeah, Mayfield has 4. Okay, so 4-2. So he's again like they just don't do a lot of passing volume with him. They put him in a situation to do a lot of they run it a lot, and they do a lot of play action and bootleg stuff, and they've made him effective. But yeah. You think the Cardinals are going to have a better game against Browns just because we better match with them, not like 49ers? Yeah, hopefully, right? Yeah, I think there's a good chance. I mean, the Niners put a lot of pressure, but they have Myles Garrett there too. But yeah, I think hopefully I think our offense will be better. I think that run game might give us some fits, but we'll see. Paul, thanks for being here. Always appreciate you being here. Do we need one more cornerback and trade or free agent? These 17 games are brutal. I mean, I don't think we need to trade for one. Yeah, if you could get a good cornerback that you add, that's always going to help your roster be better. But they've got a handful of cornerbacks kind of in the building, right? And some of them have been injured, obviously. Obviously, Murphy, Alford, and Wilson, we know those are the top 3. But Antonio Hamilton has played pretty well. He's actually been one of our better graded cornerbacks. So he's played reasonably well. They've got Gowan, but they haven't played him. But he's in the building. They've got on the practice squad, I think they still have Rasul Douglas, if I'm not mistaken. They've got Luke Barku. They re-signed in the practice squad. If he's still, though I'd have to check because they've made so many moves. I have to check on who's still there. And obviously Jace Whitaker. There's like 6 or 7 guys that are between the active roster and the practice squad that they do have or have had, and they could always bring more guys back. So I think they're going to work with those guys. Maybe we see them continue to make a few moves in terms of bring another guy onto the practice squad. I mean, they brought Quentin Dunbar and then they released him not too long thereafter. So I just think what we're going to see with the cornerback room is they're going to keep churning the bottom end of the roster with those guys, those free agent practice squad guys, and elevate a few of them to the roster. And I mean, they have made it work, right? Antonio Hamilton and Jace Whitaker played a lot of snaps, and our defense held San Francisco to 10 points. And most of their offense was in the rushing game. I know Trey Lance had a rough game. He's a rookie. He's not same kind of passer as a veteran quarterback. I think they feel good about their cornerback situation, depth, and their ability as a defense to cover any deficiencies in that cornerback room because they've been doing that all year, really. So, I mean, I know, man, that's the 2 positions Cardinals fans have been talking about trading for all preseason and season. They've been tight end and cornerback, and I get it. Everybody wants to see those moves. And I just think I don't think they're making big moves in those positions. I think they're working, they're churning the bottom end of the roster. I use that term a lot, but they also I've heard them use that in the past. And I mean they've made it work. The results are pretty good. Like the run defense is our biggest weakness, it seems like. So we'll see though, right? Lions fans miss Prater. Yeah, well, they miss a lot of things, right? Including wins, right? All right, so let's see. If you could have another tight end in this offense, who would it be? That's a good question. I mean, obviously, you look at like who doesn't want Kelsey or Kittle or Darren Waller, or one of those kinds of guys. So, I mean, if you're waving a magic wand, I'm probably going to say maybe a healthy Kittle because he, what he does blocking and catching. If you want me to give an answer that's a little more realistic, kind of a guy they might actually be realistically able to trade for, it's more what a guy I talked about before. I like Hayden Hurst as the kind of guy they could add. But yeah. Can you play as a tune when your guitars? I could, but I'm not going to. Thank you for asking, though. So 20 less pass attempts in Murray in terms of your Baker. Yeah, he's again like he just. If you look at his stats, even last year, I mean, not a ton of yards. You know, they use him efficiently, right? But they win. They play a much more of a team oriented game. Need some dogs in the lockers, so even the cats start barking. Right? I've heard someone quoted that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think we've gone through a lot of questions and comments and kind of touched on a lot of different topics. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate you all being here. It's always fun to hang out with you. I appreciate just getting to interact with the Cardinals community. And I think there's just maybe 2 more questions coming in or comments. So I'll just get these last 2 and then we'll call it a night. Check out Grant Cohn YouTube. He wants 49ers trade Kittle away. And I'm familiar with who Grant Cohn is because I know a couple of 49ers content creators. And they talk about him. So I've seen a little bit of stuff. So, okay, he wants them to trade him away. That doesn't mean they want to. But, yeah, I mean, I think I'm guessing, although I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing what he's thinking is he's injured. Let's see if we can get something for him, some draft capital. And I just, again, like, how do you fit? There's salary cap implications on all of this, and even if you're going to have to pay that guy even if he's not on a big contract. Now you don't like him, yeah, okay. Grant Cohn, or I'm guessing, yeah. So I mean, listen, this you have to roster build. There's roster building strategies that have to involve balancing the salary cap, and that's something you have to think of for all these things. So the question is, where are the best places to spend? And that's something I'm really interested in and I think about. So that's what I know that's maybe it seems like I'm like, I'm not, maybe it feels like I poo-poo on a lot of these potential trades. And part of it is I try to look at from this bigger picture of, well, okay, with the guys we have to pay and we want to pay, how are we going to fit those guys in? And is paying a 30-something-year-old cornerback, even if he's really good, the right way to use that, right? So we'll go with this last question. Do you think Larry can come back, or he's done for sure? I think he can. I think I briefly touched on this earlier. I think if he comes back, I think the way he comes back is if one of our starting receivers is injured. And obviously we don't want that to happen, but if one of our top receivers is injured, I could see him coming back. But that's really the only way. But I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. So, Jason, thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate everyone watching, my videos and who subscribe to the channel. So again, thank you for being here. If you're not already subscribed, please do subscribe. If you're not part of the Discord server, please consider joining that. We have kind of keep a dialogue going year round. Yeah, that question's been asked about 5 times. Can he? Sure. Do I think he will? No. Thank you, Fahad. Thank you for being here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, but I really appreciate you all being here. Everyone have a great night.